Hello, everybody. Welcome to our study in Genesis. We're going to be in Genesis chapter 35 tonight. However, it's been a couple of weeks, so we're going to be doing an intense review. And I won't ask a lot of questions because it's been a couple of weeks. So I'll just talk a lot. And then y'all can just dive in when you're ready.
Okay.
A couple of weeks ago, we read this absolutely horrible chapter. Chapter 34 was absolutely horrible. All right. Things have been things have been kind of weird as this works together as it is. Remember, we're talking about God's promises. We're talking about the patriarchs, Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. Abraham has already gone on to be with God, as is his wife Sarah. Isaac is still alive, all right, and obviously Jacob is still alive, because this is all really talking about Jacob. So that's Abraham's grandson, Isaac's son. Jacob has gone off, right, and he's done all this work to get his wife, but he had to work 7 years and got tricked into Leah. Then he worked 7 more years for Rachel, but he also took on 2 concubines. So he's got 4 women he's bearing children through. And it's not God's will, but this is how it's worked out. See, again, God gives us the opportunity to screw up a lot and still blesses us. And so he understands this. I think he really, really does. And that's what we mean by God's promises, God being a God of promise, because he does that over and over again. All right. So then, Janice was talking about this too, again, about the fact that we don't read much about women in Genesis. And it's absolutely true. We will tonight. We're going to read a lot about them, unfortunately, for good reasons and for bad.
Oh, yeah.
But when we're naming children in the Bible, overwhelmingly, they name the boys. They don't name the girls.
Yeah, I noticed that,
Yeah. That's fundamental, basic way things are decided. Just look at our last names. Okay, I think that it's fair to say that for anybody who's been married, if you're a female, you took your husband's name. And men, we keep our names. We're seeing in our society that's changing. A lot of women are keeping their family name. And
My granddaughter is.
Right, and as a result, either she keeps her name or she hyphenates it. And again, I go back to whatever you want to be called, it's okay by me. I think there's a lot of respect for a woman who wants to keep a family name, because it shows a lot of respect for their family. But I hope my children take, I have 2 daughters and a son. I hope my daughters take their husband's family's name. I think that's more biblical. A woman leave her home and cleaves to her husband, as it says in the beginning of Genesis. But I don't think there's anything biblically wrong with a woman keeping her family name. And there's nothing mandated to take your husband's name. But
my granddaughter is the only one that's left in the family with her last name. When they all die, they wouldn't have B, so she kept her name, so it wouldn't quite die out.
Right, and that's wonderful. That's actually a very beautiful thing. I have a son, so my name will continue. But I also have nephews, lots of them. And my name will continue, with them as well. So, but here, that's the reason what happened. So why I bring that up is because of what happened in 34. Earlier, chapters before this, one of the daughters was actually named in the Bible, and that's Dinah. All right? So one of Jacob's daughters is actually named. And I told you months ago, that we will find out why she's mentioned. And unfortunately, in chapter 34, we find out why. All right, so here's a situation where you have Dinah. She goes to meet with some women. They're living right now. Jacob has brought his family out from Padam Haram. This is where he's already left his father-in-law, and that's Leah and Rachel's dad. Remember, they had this big bad breakup, and they go their separate ways. And then Jacob is on his way back to visit his father, to live with his father again in the Promised Land. And boom, out of nowhere, he actually meets his brother, Esau. So there's Jacob and Esau. And we talked about, hey, how you doing tonight?
Thank you. How you guys doing?
Very good, thank you. Do you remember, and I will ask this question, do you remember what happened when Jacob met his brother Esau? You remember, Jacob stole things from Esau, his birthright, his inheritance, and took off. Now he's
down flat on the ground.
Yeah, so Jacob bows down flat on the ground. He sent out his family, his gifts, and everything before him, expecting that Esau is going to kill him. Esau has a right to kill him, okay? But what does Esau do? He forgives him over and over again. Offers to take care of him, protect him, all kinds of things. We needed that breath of fresh air. We needed to see somebody showing God's forgiveness in the Bible, and that's where Esau does it. So we're very grateful for Esau, as is Jacob. So now Jacob leaves Esau. He's still heading back to Canaan to be with his father. And on the way, they stay in this place called Shechem. And his daughter Dinah is unfortunately meets this boy, Shechem himself, right? Named, said to his named after the city they live in, and he rapes her.
King's son, right?
Yeah, king's son.
Oh, that's the horrible thing about
This is the horrible thing that
34,
happens. Yeah, about 34. This is the horrible thing. It gets worse, Joe.
it gets.
Well, we talked about this. We talked about an eye for an eye and a tooth for a tooth, and that Jesus taught against that. Jesus said, "All right, I know you've heard it said, and which is what the Bible does say. There'll be an eye for a tooth for a tooth. In other words, the punishment has to match the crime." But Jesus says, "No, I take it another step. You're to forgive your brother 7 times, 77 times."
Yeah.
And because Jesus brings this element of forgiveness, no matter what happens to us. And although, again, the Bible still talks about the idea that you still hold people accountable, we're not supposed to be evil towards each other. And an eye for an eye is, when it's done that way. We don't do that in our society today.
No.
No. If you steal from somebody, we don't cut your arm off. You go to prison. And even then, we try our very best to be lenient. We have 2 big court cases here in Massachusetts going on right now that are receiving international attention, believe it or not. And so what should happen to Zanayev, the remaining brother from the Boston bombing?
He should go to prison for the
Right.
rest of his
And
life.
you're in the majority of people here in Massachusetts. Even some of the people who were affected by his treachery also feel the same way. But others feel that he should get the death sentence. That would be an eye for an eye. The death sentence would be an eye for an eye. But people have different opinions about this. But overwhelmingly,
Well, some of the
It's
people,
young.
yeah, but some of the people figure if, they execute, if he was to be executed, there would be appeals and appeals. And,
forever.
And they said they'd be living their nightmare for the rest of their lives,
Yep.
really.
Yeah, and have no closure. Closure. A lot of people feel like, I think what Lynn was saying, he's very young.
Young, yeah.
And there's a strong argument that he was just an idiot kid following his big brother. All
He
right.
still knew what he was doing.
He's 19. Yeah.
He knows what
Yep.
he was doing.
Yeah. And there's no argument against that either. However, I will tell you, I can remember what my mind was like when I was that age. And I did plenty of stupid things. I'm not going to talk about them here. But I can just think of plenty of stupid things I did. And so that's where Jesus' teaching come in. Is this element of forgiveness. And again, our country, as we get further and further away from Christ, we don't realize how much an effect the Bible has had on our society. We are a very lenient society. We care very, very much about people. And there's some troubled things that Joe and I were talking about going on right now in Baltimore. Again,
Yeah.
and some terrible things. Something very terrible happened to a man, and at the hands of our best and brightest, our police, and that just can't happen. And so there's a lot going on. But these are the things the Bible guides us on and gives us direction. So the point we made 2 weeks ago was that Dinah is raped. Okay. Despite the fact that Shechem, who raped her, asked to be forgiven and to marry her, because he really loved her. Okay? He asked to be forgiven and marry her. All right? Jacob's sons, Dinah's brothers and half-brothers, slaughter all the people of Shechem. Slaughter them. That's not an eye for an eye. That's way beyond that. Way beyond that.
Overreact, yeah.
Yep. I mean, if you want to see, again, and again, there are a lot, one of the beauties of living in this century, or in the 20th century and 21st century, is that we have these things, for better or for worse, called movies. And we have some great movies out there that you can actually teach the Bible from. For men, and this is another movie, by the way, but where this line comes from that talks about the movie I want to get to, is a movie that men really, really love. A lot of men identify with this movie. It's called The Godfather. Believe it or not. In fact, it's in a movie with Tom Hanks where he talks about how important The Godfather is for a lot of men, how we see things. In The Godfather, the problem is you have this you have this wonderful man who takes care of not only his own family but the whole community, but he is a cold-blooded murderer.
Yeah.
Okay? So you get that disparity. That's a real tough thing to go along. Well, in the beginning of the movie, another man from the community whose daughter was raped and horribly beaten comes to the Godfather for justice and asks that these two boys get killed.
He loved her and he beat her up.
Yeah, now wait a minute. No. So Dinah in Shechem, there's nothing in here that says that he beat her up. But in The Godfather, this man that comes to see The Godfather, his daughter is horribly raped and beaten. And so this man comes to The Godfather to get these two boys killed.
Oh.
Is that an eye for an eye?
Yeah.
No. In fact, The Godfather even says that. He says, no, your daughter's still alive. If the daughter was dead, then the boys die. If she's alive, they have to give them the same punishment that they gave the girl.
Oh, yeah.
That's an eye for an eye.
An eye for an eye.
And in The Godfather, again, I'm not advocating The Godfather as a biblical reference here. It's just, it does help if you want to see these kind of things. The Godfather makes sure that very, very special, reliable men are sent to provide justice to these two boys. Okay, that's still wrong in our society. We don't do it that way. But just to show you, in light of this horrible, horrible thing, where, and again, Shechem did something terrible. And another thing, too, we talk a lot about this. This is thousands and thousands of years ago. How things were done then are very different than today. You can't always look at things by today's standards and say, right, wrong. It's obviously wrong. The word violated hers is there. All right? It ends with that, too. In fact, 34 ends, but they reply, should he have treated our sister like a prostitute? He used very, very strong words in 34 to describe Shechem's sin and how they went about trying to make it just. Okay, yeah, because they tried to bribe him and stuff, but the sons of Jacob are horribly wrong, and we see that terrible, terrible thing. All right, that's the extended background, bringing us up to here. All right, so we're still back on the road from Padan-Aram, going back to Canaan. Jacob is still bringing his extended family now. Remember, there's a lot of people here. They're not only his two wives and his two concubines and their sons and daughters. There are maid servants, men servants. There's camels and goats and donkeys, and there's a lot of people. And he's working his way through. And so after this terrible thing happens in Shechem, Jacob is ready now to return to Bethel. And we're going to pick up that right now. And in Bethel, if you can remember, we'll talk a lot about Bethel, and we'll go back to when that first came up. Bethel means house of God. Beth is the Hebrew word for house. El means him, the house of him. And when you use that term, it always means God.
Bethlehem means...
There you go. You're getting way ahead of me, Joe. That's exactly right. Right. Bethlehem means the house of bread.
Yeah.
Okay. And so that's where Jesus, the bread of life, comes from. Isn't that kind of neat? God keeps throwing all these little things in there.
I didn't know that.
They're making a lot of fun with
House
it.
of bread?
Yeah, and we're going to talk about Bethlehem tonight, too.
That's why he had to be born in Bethlehem.
There's a lot of reasons why. Well, there's a prophecy was that
Yeah.
he had to be born in Bethlehem.
Yeah.
And but also it's kind of neat the kind of wording God uses. He constantly gives us clues and little reminders and pulls these things all together.
He's still doing it.
He's still doing that. If you're looking for him.
Yeah, you have to be looking.
You have to be looking for him. All right, guys. So chapter 35, verse 1. Then God said to Jacob, "Go up to Bethel and settle there and build an altar there to God, who appeared to you when you were fleeing from your brother Esau." That was all those chapters ago. So Jacob said to his household and to all who were with him, "Get rid of the foreign gods you have with you, and purify yourselves and change your clothes. Then come, let us go up to Bethel, where I will build an altar to God, who answered me in the day of my distress, and who has been with me wherever I have gone." So they gave Jacob all the foreign gods they had and the rings in their ears, and Jacob buried them under the oak at Shechem. Then they set out, and the terror of God fell upon the towns all around them, so that no one pursued them. Jacob and all the people with him came to Luz, that is Bethel, in the land of Canaan. There he built an altar, and he called the place El Bethel, because it was there that God revealed himself to him when he was fleeing from his brother. Now Deborah, Rebekah's nurse, died and was buried under the oak below Bethel. So it was named Alon Bakuth.
Oak of weeping.
Huh?
Oak of weeping.
Yes, oak of weeping. Very good. Good. See, these names have meaning. All right. After Jacob returned from Padan Aram, God appeared to him again and blessed him. God said to him, "Your name is Jacob, but you will no longer be called Jacob. Your name will be Israel." So he named him Israel. And God said to him, "I am God Almighty. Be fruitful and increase in number. A nation and a community of nations will come from you, and kings will come from your body. The land I gave to Abraham and Isaac I also give to you, and I will give you this land to your descendants after you." Then God went up from him at the place where he had talked with him. Jacob set up a stone pillar at the place where God had talked with him, and he poured out a drink offering on it. He also poured oil on it. Jacob called the place where God had talked with him Bethel. Verse 16. Then they moved from Bethel, where they were still some distance from Ephrath. Rachel began to give birth and had great difficulty. And as she was having great difficulty in childbirth, the midwife said to her, "Don't be afraid, for you have another son." As she breathed her last, for she was dying, she named her son Ben-Oni, but his father named him Benjamin. So Rachel died. So Rachel died and was buried on the way to Ephrath, that is Bethlehem. Over her tomb, Jacob set up a pillar, and to this day that pillar marks Rachel's tomb. Israel moved on again. Remember, now they're not saying Jacob, they're saying Israel. Moved on again and pitched his tent beyond Migdal Eder. While Israel was living in that region, Reuben went in and slept with his father's concubine, Bilhah, and Israel heard of it. Jacob, that's Israel, had 12 sons. The sons of Leah, all right, count them. Reuben, the firstborn of Jacob, Simeon, Levi, Judah, Issachar, and Zebulun. How many is that? 6. That's half of them. Half of them were to Leah. The sons of Rachel, Joseph and Benjamin. The sons of Rachel's maidservant Bilhah, Dan and Naphtali. The sons of Leah's maidservant, Zilpah, Gad, and Asher. These were the sons of Jacob, who were born to him in Padan Aram. Jacob came home to his father Isaac in Mamre, near Kiriath Arba, that is Hebron, where Abram and Isaac stayed. Isaac lived 180 years. Then he breathed his last and died and was gathered to his people, old and full of years. And his sons Esau and Jacob buried him. All right. There's an awful lot in that one, huh? It's an awful lot. A lot going on here. Told you, lots of women, huh? Lots of women mentioned in this. Okay, so there's a good reason, and there's good reasons for that. All right, so let's go back to verse 1. So God gives Jacob more instructions. And one of the things that we've watched throughout the life of Jacob is how much more and more God interacts with him, and how much more Jacob is godly and follows God and seeks God and tries to do right by him, even though his sons can be very, very, very bad. So Jacob is returning to Bethel. Bethel is where, when he was leaving his father for and to head out to Padan Aram, is where he was, where I think he was really struggling, probably dying, starvation or dehydration, and he goes to sleep, puts a rock under his head, and has a dream. And that's where the angels are going up and down the ladder, and he can see God. And God makes his promise to him. You have nothing to worry about. Not only am I going to take care of you, I will bring you back to your father. All right? And so now, there he is. He's actually bringing him back to his father. Again, throughout Genesis, we've said it 100 times. And again, if you only remember one thing about Genesis, remember that this is the book that tells us that God is a God of promises. And that you can trust him. And that despite how bad we behave, all right, God will fulfill his promises to us. So Jacob said to his household and to all who were with him, get rid of the foreign gods you have with you and purify yourselves and change your clothes. Carrying around foreign gods is a big issue. Didn't we see this already? What did happen when Jacob first left?
Rachel was sitting on the...
Rachel stole her father's gods and idols and took them. So they still got them with them. All right? And so God's already said, that's it, you're done with all this. I'm not putting up with your foreign gods any longer. I think if we were hearing this on a Sunday morning, the preacher was pounding on the pulpit, he would say, we have our own foreign gods too. I would go so far as to say a God is anything that you desire more than God's presence. So if you're, like right now, the fact the Red Sox are playing in Fenway tonight is on my mind. They're in a rain delay. All right, I think that might be God's way of saying, Mark, take your time. Enjoy your night with everybody.
They're not playing the Orioles, are they?
Thank God, no.
They lost to the Orioles.
That's an understatement. 18-7? Yeah, I think that's a loss.
Yeah,
No, they're playing the Blue Jays.
Yeah,
and
the
stuff.
Blue Jays. Huh?
Yep. So, but that could be a God. I'll tell you right now, that's one of the things I learned. Again, I heard. Obviously, I'm bringing this up because I remember my pastor pounding the pulpit saying, don't think you're any different, folks. All right, we can get caught up with all kinds of things. Some of you guys just you love food more than you want to have the presence of God. The Pope said this a long time ago. It's John Paul II said lust, because he was asked about what lust is. He says desiring anything more than the presence of God. And I remember these knuckleheads. I was living out in San Diego on the radio criticizing the Pope for that. What's wrong? You mean tell me I can't lust after my wife? Yeah, that's what the Pope's saying. Lust is when I love God more than anything else. There's nothing comes close to my love for God. And I love my wife very much. It just shows you how much more I love God. That's what the Pope is trying to say. But again, when you look at it from secular perspectives, okay, it's wrong. So the word lust, it means desiring anything more than the presence of God. Now, we have a great God. He wants us to enjoy his creation. He makes it clear. So when you guys are tired of me and you kick me out tonight, I'll go home and I'll turn the Red Sox on and I'll enjoy them. And hopefully, they'll be able to keep the pitches low and the ball in the ballpark, and except when they're batting, and life will be good. But that's a good thing for us all to ask ourselves. What are our foreign gods? What are the gods that we have before us? It's pretty easy.
No, I don't think I have any others
Then-
at this present moment.
Right.
I can't think of nothing.
Right. But again, I know again the thing is like for Mike and I, for Mike, we can't wait to go Wednesday. Wednesday's when we go back out and clean the streets. We can't wait for it. Love it. Okay, we get to minister to people. Mm-hmm. This poor lady walked up to us, and it's a trap we set for them. So we're wearing our Jesus shirts, just like Mike's got on his hat, and so everybody knows Jesus. Everybody knows him, and so they say the same thing. I like your shirt, and as Mike has taught me, what my response is supposed to be. Great, would you like one? And overwhelmingly, their response back to me is, I don't have any money. And as Mike has taught me, I say, God is free. And all of a sudden, I call over to Mike, and here comes Mike. What size do you want to wear? Well, the lady says, and not only does she say, I don't have any money. In fact, I go to BCC, I don't even have enough money for bus fare. So we give her bus fare.
So Mark reaches in, gives her $10 for bus fare.
Okay? And she's just, you'll see her here one night. We just got to reconnect with her and get her, because she's thrilled. We invited her to dinner. So we do a Bible study. She can I bring my son? I say, you kidding me? They'd love to see your kid and everything. But, again, the idea. Yeah. And again, and here's one thing she said. I don't know if you heard this. She says, you guys do a Bible study in this neighborhood?
Yeah, she just said that.
What do you think this is? Purgatory? What are you talking about?
Right.
And so...
people have misconceptions.
Yeah.
Over the place.
But the key is that that was the God that was before us. Our God is before us. And so again, same thing for you in your daily lives. Just see the presence of God, and just give you opportunity to love people, and it's tough. It's just very easy to get tripped up with that. So again, to all the pastors and preachers out there that love to pound that one, this kid got that message. All right, so obviously what Jacob's talking about here is Rachel and the gods she stole from her father, and get rid of all those. Other cultural things are looked at as well. Eventually we'll talk about removing the jewelry that was very pagan. Change your clothes. Then come, let us go up to Bethel, where I'll build an altar to God. He's already built one there. Who answered me in the day of my distress and has been with me wherever I've gone. So they gave Jacob all the foreign gods, and he had them rings in their ears, and Jacob buried them in the oak at Shechem. All right, so right there in that same city, before they leave, they bury everything. The city where they murdered everybody. Then they set out, and the terror of God fell upon the towns all around them, so that no one pursued them. They feared Jacob because of God. They knew who his God was, and they respected that. And we've seen, remember, Abraham's already gone through all of this before. And they knew how powerful Abraham was and how powerful Isaac was because of the God they served.
See, that's a good one too. That when Jacob did that, God said, "Do this," and Jacob did it, and the people following Jacob did it. Then God acted. Until you do what He says, He can't act because you're not following Him.
Yeah.
You're still holding back.
Yeah.
And we do that in our lives all the time here. That's a good point. Okay.
Verse 6, Jacob and all the people with him came to Luz, that is Bethel, we were told that before, in the land of Canaan. There he built an altar. This is Canaan, by the way, is modern-day Israel. There he built an altar, and he called the place El Bethel, because it is the house of God in him, to him. Was there that God revealed himself to Jacob when he was fleeing from his brother. All right, so like I said, sad reasons we mention a lot of women. Now Deborah, that's the first time that name is used, because we will learn, when you study the book of Judges, you learn about Deborah the judge. Okay, so it was a great leader in Israel. But this is obviously a different Deborah. Deborah, Rebecca's nurse, died and was buried under the oak below Bethel. So it was named Alan Bakuth. And Lynn, what does that mean?
Oak of weeping.
Oak of weeping. Okay. Verse 9, after Jacob returned from Haram, God appeared to him again and blessed him. God said to him, your name is Jacob. You will no longer be called Jacob. Your name will be Israel. So he named him Israel. This is actually the second time. This has been, God's already told him this once before, but now this is a confirmation. And God said to him, now this is neat, I am God Almighty. He has never he's never referred to himself as that before. He's referred to himself as I am the God of Abraham and Isaac. I am the God of your fathers. Now he's referring to himself as God Almighty. And the Hebrew for that is El Shaddai. It's one of the most popular names that Jews use for God. God Almighty.
El Shaddai.
Yep,
Also a nice song.
it's a very nice song by Amy Grant, and Gail and I got to hear her sing it not too long ago over in Providence.
Okay.
All right. So here we go. Now this is again, God is going to repeat the Abrahamic covenant, the covenant he had made with Abraham, Jacob's grandfather. I am God Almighty. Be fruitful and increase in number. Right? Be fruitful and multiply. A nation was a community. A nation and a community of nations will come from you, and kings will come from your body. Yeah, like King David. The land I gave to Abraham and Isaac, I also give to you, and I will give this land to your descendants after you. Then God went up for him at that place where he had talked with him. Jacob set up a stone pillar at the place where God had talked with him, and he poured out a drink offering. There are many, many offerings in the Bible, though, by the way. As you go through the Deuteronomy and Leviticus, many more. There's peace offerings and all kinds of offerings. On it, he also poured oil on it. Jacob called the place where God had talked with him Bethel. All right, verse 16. Then they moved on from Bethel. While there was still some distance from Ephrath, that's where Isaac is, Rachel began to give birth and had great difficulty. And as she was having great difficulty in childbirth, the midwife said to her, there's that phrase again, 365 times it's used in the Bible. Fear not. Do not be afraid. Which is very interesting. The woman's about to die. We talked about the strong identity women have with maternity, right? It's very critical, especially in these times. Very, very critical. Probably still very critical today. Women identify themselves with childbirth and child raising. Rachel began to give birth and had great difficulty. And as she was having great difficulty in childbirth, the midwife said to her, "Don't be afraid, for you have another son." This is prophesied, right?
It wasn't from Rachel or the son, was it?
Second.
Was the son from Rachel?
Yeah. This is Rachel has 2 sons.
And she's almost dying, right?
She's going to die with the second one. When she was having the first son, whose name is Joseph.
Oh.
Okay, who the rest of Genesis is going to be all about. After we get through this portion here, we're going to be talking primarily about Joseph. She has Joseph, and then she when she's having Joseph, she makes a prophecy. I want another son, even if it means I die.
And here it is.
And here it is. By the way, let's just pause for a second. How important? Remember, there's 4 women in Jacob's life, in Israel's life. Okay, Leah, Rachel, and then the 2 maidservants. Right? Why is Rachel more important than the other 3?
She was a chosen one.
She's chosen. Yeah, there's this element that's chosen.
And that's the one that Jacob really was loved to the
That's the one he
beginning.
loves. He works 14 years for her.
Yeah.
He is madly in love with Rachel, not with Leah. Leah bears him 6 sons. Rachel bears him 2. And then when she bears the second son, Benjamin, she dies. This is horror for Israel, for Jacob. This is his heartthrob, and so Benjamin is born. As she breathed her last, for she was dying, she named him Ben Oni. It means the son of Oni, but his father named him Benjamin, which means what? Lynn, do you have that?
I got son of my trouble.
Yeah. Okay.
Benjamin means son of my right hand.
Yeah.
Benjamin.
Yep.
And Ben-Omi is son of my
Trouble.
That's what I got
Son of my right
on the
hand.
bottom.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Means son of my right hand.
Yeah. So you can see how Jacob looked at it, and then how Rachel looked at it. Okay. Ever since we first started discussing Genesis, we talked about how important names are. Okay. Benjamin, very famous name, right?
Yeah.
Very popular name throughout Judaism and Christianity.
I got a nephew with that name, yeah, Benjamin.
Yeah, we can think of famous people, very famous. Benjamin Franklin.
Ben Cartwright.
Ben Cartwright, one of our favorites, right? Yeah. All right. Now, of course, the word Ben means son, right? So, for example, people ask me about, well, then tell me about Jesus again from the Hebrew perspective. Said, he's the son of, Ben Yosef, Yeshua ben Yosef, Jesus, the son of Joseph. All right, that's who's actually his stepfather, not his real father. So Rachel died and was buried on the way to Ephrath, that is Bethlehem. So they're going back to Israel, to what is we call Israel today. Bethlehem is in that is a small town in there, but you can see how important Bethlehem is to God. So they return over her tomb. Jacob set up a pillar, and to this day that pillar marks Rachel's tomb. Verse 21. Israel moved on again and pitched his tent beyond Migdal Eder. While Israel was living in that region, Reuben, okay, who's Reuben?
First son of
The very first son,
yeah.
right? Leah's son, the firstborn of all these guys. Is that a big deal to these people?
I would think so.
Well, let's talk about that. Is Jacob the firstborn male to his father?
No.
Esau is.
Yeah.
So what was Esau supposed to be getting?
All the,
He gets the inheritance from his father.
yeah.
He's got the first inheritance. All right? The firstborn male child is critical. Absolutely critical. And Reuben's the firstborn male child. He is due to receive the lion's share of whatever Israel or Jacob has when he passes away. Reuben's not going to wait. That includes his concubines. Israel moved on again and pitched his tent beyond Migdal Edir. While Israel was living in that region, Reuben went in and slept with his father's concubine Bilhah. And Israel, Jacob, heard of it. But as I said before, he doesn't have the ability to control his sons. This is one of his weaknesses. He couldn't control his sons at Shechem. He's not able to control Reuben here. We were asked, tonight to talk about, get the names all straight again. All right, we're going to get them all straight right here. Okay, so the sons of Leah. There's Reuben, the firstborn of Jacob. That's very important. The Bible specifically mentions that. Simeon, Levi, Judah, Issachar, and Zebulun. All right. As you study the Bible, those names are very important. The sons of Rachel, Joseph and Benjamin. But we are going to study all about Joseph. The sons of Rachel's maidservant Bilhah, Dan and Naphtali. The sons of Leah's maidservant Zilpah, Gad and Asher. These were the sons of Jacob, who were born to him in Padan Aram, with the exception of Benjamin, obviously. Jacob came home to his father Isaac in Mamre, near Kiriath Arba, that is Hebron, where Abraham and Isaac had stayed. Isaac lived 180 years. Then he breathed his last, just like his father, and died and was gathered to his people, old and full of years. Baruch Hashem, Baruch Atah Adonai. And his sons, Esau and Jacob, buried him. How's that for a circle? Isaac sees his sons. Well, there's a lot of that, but between Jacob and Esau, I mean,
Going after
so that's probably means there's a good chance.
maidservant.
Yeah, but look at the relationship between Jacob and Esau. That started out when they were together. When the three of them were together, it was very bad. Horrible things happened. Jacob, is treacherous with his father. Here he is at the end of his life. Now, I don't know. We don't know if Esau was there for his death. We know Jacob was. But it's a good possibility that his father got to see his two sons together. I know my father would like to see his sons together. He didn't. But here's that opportunity. So at the very least, we know that Esau and Jacob were together to bury their father.
Yeah.
So that's very nice. So there it is. And that's it. Questions and comments?
Remember a little while back, and they were talking about Jacob's sons going in and killing all the men in the village. It says over here, where is it? After what happened to their sister, 3 days later, while all of them were still in pain, two of Jacob's sons, Simeon and Levi, Dinah's brothers, took their swords and attacked.
Yep.
So it was them two that killed.
Keep reading.
That attacked the
Remember
unsuspected city, killing every male.
Right. What do the other boys do? And I don't think Joseph was one of them, by the way. I think he was too young.
They put Hannah and his son Shechem to the sword and took Dinah from Shechem. Left the house.
Yep.
The sons of Jacob came up upon the dead bodies and they stole everything.
Yeah. Versus grabbing their brothers, saying what you did was horrible. You can't do this to us.
They just did.
They're just.
The whole village and the women and children.
Right.
Yeah. So they did just as bad. But I'm saying, at first we weren't sure if it was all the sons.
Well, no, it does say that. Like you say, the two sons. It mentions specifically.
And those are Leah's.
And then the other ones, these are Leah's sons, but also some of the other sons too.
The second and third.
Yeah, the only one. Benjamin wasn't alive yet. Joseph.
No, I mean Reuben.
Reuben. Well, yeah, absolutely,
Reuben
Reuben.
was the first, but Simeon and Levi,
Right.
was mentioned, did the killing, and the rest of the sons just went in and pillaged the whole city.
Yep. And so, one of the things we also mentioned is that when we get to the point where Joseph is taken from his father and is sold into slavery, which is coming.
Egypt, isn't it?
Yep. Going down into Egypt. That's no big deal for these brothers to do. They've done much worse.
Yeah.
It's much worse. Yet, God is going to save all of them. By the way, Reuben blows it. when he went in and took his father's concubine, he's actually, it's almost like he's demanding his birthright then and there. Well, he will completely lose his birthright. It will go to Joseph. And again, just, and again, the study of Joseph is just, it's wonderful because I think everybody knows, everybody has a good idea that Joseph is a pre-type of Jesus Christ. We get to watch this man do honorable things over and over again and get flattened for doing it. All right, which is the message God keeps telling us, guys. Look, I ain't promising you a rose garden. He does not promise us a rose garden. Even as Christians, he tells us, look, I'm sorry, you got heaven coming. There'll be a lot of joyous times being in me. But no, actually, you should be rejoicing when you get persecuted in my name. And okay, that's how one of the ways I know that I'm in God's will, because I'm getting persecuted. So it's terrible, it's tough, and things like that too. But I'm happy to tell you that the hardest parts of Genesis is behind us. As long as you can handle what the brothers do to Joseph, and then what happens to him in prison down in Egypt, and everything. Something
coming up to that.
Yep. And if you can handle that, if you can handle this, what's yet to come is no big deal. No big deal. But we get to study Joseph.
He got punished a lot, and he had a lot of bad things happen to him, but he had a lot of good things happen to him too.
Yeah, he became number 2 to Pharaoh himself.
Pharaoh
He gets to be reunited with his father before he dies. He gets to save his father and his brothers. Oh, yeah. Potiphar's wife. Again, we're going right through Genesis right now, which is cool. Yeah, Potiphar's wife who had the hots for him.
So good in jail, they made him like a master.
Yeah. Everywhere, the old saying about bloom where you're planted. He is the epitome of bloom where you're planted. He is just, Jesus Christ gets sent down to earth, comes down to earth on his own free will, comes down here, does wonderful things, and what do? We beat him and crucify him. All right? It's just the way things are. It's just amazing. Again, if you study the Bible from this perspective, you get to see how God, even good people, get flattened, bad people get away with things. And God explains this. I'm sorry, it rains on the good and the bad. Sun shines on the good and the bad.
It's still going on.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, that's the whole point.
And it'll keep going on until God comes.
That's exactly right.
Some of us will feel it more than others, and some of them won't feel it at all, and some don't care, and some care with all their heart.
But as I said before, if you have access to any of the movies on Joseph, even the musical, the Code of Many Colors, feel free.
I saw that in cartoon form.
Okay, yeah. It's called the original one was Joseph and the multi-something dream code or something.
Multicolored dream code.
Thank you, dear. Thank you, Sharon. That was exactly right. And if you get a chance to see it again, feel free. I mean, it's not that biblical, but it still tells the story enough that makes it a lot of fun when you're reading it to have that visual effect, because it's going to be interesting. Of course, Joseph's got some issues. He's a bit of a brat. He does flaunt the dreams before his brothers. I'd personally, if he was coming and tell that to me, I'd probably want to smack him around a couple times myself. But still, he's a prophet. He was telling the truth. I mean, you can't automatically assume that somebody's being selfish. You have to ask. You have to seek God, which the brothers don't do, and everything. But then again, who knows? All righty. Thanks, everybody. We'll see you next time.